Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my interview with the rather marvellous Msgyver, also known, are we ready? Laura Nachtigall. Did I get that right?
It's good enough. Good enough.
Grindingly mediocrely average. That'll do. I'll take it.
Yeah.
How the hell are you?
I am rather fine, I might say.
Excellent. So, what's been going on for you, or what's the lack of goings on for you in the current climate?
Well, currently on my plate is lots of studying for an exam that I'm doing next Monday, life science education, all the theoretical bits and nuts and bolts. On the rest, it's mostly what isn't happening, i.e. every single tour that I should have been on. I think that I was supposed to be somewhere in South America right now, but no.
And
I'm in Msgyver HQ.
That is the perfect segue, well done, into what you do or are supposed to be doing currently for a living. So would you like to tell people what it is that you do?
Yeah. Well, first we need to talk about the absence of Corona beer backstage. Before we ran out of Corona beer backstage, I used to be one of these funny people supposed to be invisible, running around on stage before, prior, and during the show. And after the show, of course. Either as a guitar technician, keyboard technician, tour manager, stage manager, backliner, sometimes even selling merchandise, if I was that way inclined. But yeah, pretty much I was live touring crew on the road with bands, and we ran out of Corona beer, so no more shows.
And you went on from that to become a tour manager, did you not?
From that, I already was a tour manager, and sort of. I started out as a guitar technician, and through that, I migrated to also being a tour manager, in part because I was always the sober, the quiet, the resolute, and the slightly brighter person on the tour bus. I did spreadsheets for fun, so yeah, that sort of gives you a natural inclination to be upgraded and volunteered towards being the tour manager.
I have to confess, I am a bit of a spreadsheeter myself. We're a limited crew, but the only people who actually get turned on by cells and boxes and formulas. But hey, everybody's got to have a kink.
Yeah, this is ours, apparently.
It is. So you've worked with a lot of bands in the metal scene and some really big bands as well, especially a lot of the European guys as well, sort of like bands like Blind Guardian. I was looking at some of the other, and especially some of the people you've teched with as well. I saw, is it Willie G for Megadeth's guitar tech?
We actually only toured together once. He for Cradle of Filth, and me for Turisas and Moonspell. But I've known him for 15 years now, and every now and then he asks me, please, can you take over? I'm fed up with this. I'm sick and tired of this shit. I want to get out. You take over my job. So, okay, bring me on. But it never materialized. But Willie G is one of my siblings.
He does seem a very, very lovely man. From the people I know who know him, who've worked with him, they said he's absolutely adorable.
Yeah, he absolutely is. He's golden. Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice to hear, especially in the music industry, which is fraught with a lot of assholes.
It is, but isn't the rest of the universe as well? Maybe the big difference is that in the music industry, at least that's how I saw it for a long time, the assholery is more upfront. in the music industry. There's less of the backstabbing from hidden spots, where it's more like in your face assholery.
Do you think that comes from being obviously being the tech and the tour manager, from those kind of roles? Because you are dealing obviously face to face with problems, with people with problems, whereas if it was more, say, in the recording side of the industry, you would probably find more of the kind of backstabby, the more sneaky kind of element to it.
Yeah, quite possibly. I've never been on that side, recording, management, but on the road, because of the high octane and there goes another deadline, there was almost no time or chance or opportunity to actually do anything not quite backstabby, because there was no time for it.
We've had a Atta from Turkey says, "Hello, Msgyver, nice to meet you." She says, "Does government support you financially about your loss and with your business?"
Only marginally. For the last year, and that was March through February, I've received a fair amount of government funding, but that was not Corona related. Since March, I do, but the government support that I get does not cover my rent, and that's only half of my monthly expenses.
God.
So, yes, I am being supported, but basically they've given me a band-aid to stop the massive aortic bleed.
They've just cut your arm off and then stuck a band-aid over it.
Yeah, pretty much, and just hold it there. Yeah. You might not bleed to death.
You're looking a bit pale. You're looking a bit pale, but I'm sure you'll be fine at the end of it.
Yeah, just hold your breath a bit longer and you'll be fine. But no, seriously, the water's right up to here.
God.
So it's not fun. And if I were touring with local bands, national bands, I could potentially get back to touring semi-soonishly. I work for international bands only. Imagine every border crossing. Madam, do you have a vaccination passport? No? Well, show us a negative PCR test. No? Quarantine, please. 2 weeks one show.
It's just not feasible, is it?
No, because no one's paying that other than the band. So it's just not happening.
So let's go back into the mists of time and find out. So how did it all start for you? What set you on the path of tour manager, technician glory?
I would need to go far back in time, before most of you were born. 95.
I was born then.
Okay. I think I was. I came to a few shows of this band, The Gathering.
Ooh. Right.
And I basically asked them, in return for me helping you push cases in, because I'm here anyway, because I always show up early, would you let me in the venue earlier? And that soon became hey, I can do your website. Hey, I can help run your fan club. Hey, and it worked the other way around. Their then tour manager, sound engineer, asked me, for our next tour, I'd like you to be there. And I said, yeah, sure. It didn't really work out because of logistics. All of them lived in one particular part of the country. I lived somewhere else completely. And that band doing their Dutch tour in a weekend warrior setup, Friday, Saturday, it was just not feasible to have me be part of the tour.
Yeah.
But I stayed in touch with Raymond, the front of house engineer, tour manager. And a little later, I joined his crew for Dynamo Open Air as a stagehand. And that was pretty much my first head dive straight into on stage with big bands, doing big things. I then took a 4-year break because I moved to Italy to live with my then partner. And when I came back, I basically, hey Raymond, I'm back in the country. I want a job in music. And the rest is history.
So you must have made quite an impression then to sort of be able to be, it seems like in a fairly short space of time, you've just gone from, say, loading into venues to helping out on big stages.
When I came back in 2002, through Raymond, I was weekend warrior for a Dutch band called Autism, doing merchandise. And it basically, they'd pay my train tickets to and from the show or to and from them. And I work for free. And what was it? November 2002 when Lacuna Coil and Sentence were touring the Netherlands. Raymond asked me to be a local tech at the show he worked. Mm. And he also wanted to introduce me to their tour manager, who also was going to be the tour manager for The Gathering. And he basically, so this is that person. Oh, hey, yeah, I know your name. I remember your name. I've seen you on so many CDs already. Hey, hi, here's my phone number. I can't promise you anything, but maybe one day. A few weeks later, I called him up when I heard that Samael and Cathedral were touring. Mm. And I asked, hey, Bobo, you remember me? Do you need some crew on that tour? And he said, yeah, I do. Can you tune guitars? I said, well, I play the bass. I think I can. Okay, you've got a job.
Oh, so you were a musician before you got into the teching side and the crewing side of things?
Technically speaking, yes, I play an instrument poorly. I was in a band. We never left the rehearsal room between 95 and 98. But yeah, technically speaking, I could stand my ground playing the bass.
Oh, cool. Oh, Carrie says, hello, lovelies. I'm watching just on YouTube, so I can't really message on there. I love The Gathering. I have 2 of their albums, I believe.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love you, Carrie.
So where did it take you? Obviously, you're starting to be introduced to all these different bands and everything. Your name is starting to get around. So it's a huge step from teching for a big band is daunting enough, especially with all the obstacles that thrown at you, amps breaking down, all of a sudden the guitar is, stuff isn't working, changing guitars over as soon as strings break, etc., etc. But taking on the role of tour manager is like going from here to boom with all the
If you say so. I don't think so.
Really? Okay. Tell me how it. Prove me wrong. Let me hear your wisdom.
In the same way that I could see the butcher and the baker and the grocery seller as they're basically providing the same service, they just have different objects that they provide the service with. As a tour manager, I am the safety net for the band. As a guitar technician, I'm a safety net for the band.
Yeah.
Now, my different tools are either the tuner, the multi-tool, possibly the flashlight, whatever, the string cutter, what have you, or the laptop and the phone and the Sharpie. The job description doesn't change much, or at least in my point of view. Like what does change is if I, as the guitar technician, break the guitar, and better hope it's not a gold top 58, the damage is going to be one guitar that's easily replaceable. As a tour manager doing an F-up, that could be 50K or north of 50K easily.
Yeah.
But the responsibility doesn't change much, at least not in my point of view. Financial responsibility, yes, absolutely guaranteed, but that's only one way of measuring it. because you can win the 50K, but as a guitar technician, having messed up the guitar so much that the guitar player can't get their solo right in front of 100,000 people, yeah, you do get paid, but you have all of the audience saying, what just happened there? Why did he mess up his solo?
And getting absolutely lynched on YouTube is usually what happens.
So yeah. So I see no difference between the two, but I understand that the world does.
Does that come from, though, having a specific kind of work ethic? So if you approach it in whatever the role is that you have been put into, if you approach it with the same mentality and the same ethic, then generally you're going to sort of succeed really in whichever role you're put into.
I would like to believe so, and I think that Willie G, aforementioned, has the same kind of work ethic. But I'll provide you another segue. Me, having suffered from gender dysphoria for about 30 years, and the only way to deal with it was to completely compartmentalize myself and make myself into the most apathetic robot imaginable. No ego, therefore no me, therefore I couldn't get in the way of things. I would just get things done. There's no me to discuss with, because here's the job. Oh, but you need to skip food. Okay.
Yeah.
That made it easier for me to be the bend over backwards, get things done kind of person, because there was no me to contend with.
I see. Interesting.
And that's something that I don't think many people bring to the table, but for me, it was definitely a virtue. And once I learned how to compartmentalize that and make sure that only happened on or near stage, I could actually privately make time free and space available for Laura to be.
Yeah. So it's kind of leaving your identity and ego at the door, isn't it? And just getting on with the task at hand.
Yeah. And to some degree, that's what all crew do. But I had some special powers there because of my gender dysphoria, where I was like, what do we need to leave at the door? There isn't anything to leave at the door. What are you all about? Let me get on with my job.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it. And I would, one of the best examples there on how I actually was on tour, or two examples actually. One, well, officially I do drink alcohol now, but until 27, I didn't drink any alcohol, and now I'll be like a glass a month, give or take, which some people say that's not drinking. But I would actually sell myself in case of doubt. Well, hire me, because that means more beer for you.
Nicely done. Reverse psychology is a wonderful thing.
It may have helped. Another thing was on how not there I was. I remember we were doing a festival with Tourisas in Sweden. They flew into one terminal, I flew into the other terminal. At a certain point, I was on the phone with the tour manager. Hey, Mike, well, obviously you landed already, otherwise you couldn't be on the phone, but when are you going to pick me up? Are you outside of the luggage area already? Like, dude, why are you calling me from the back of the van? Stop pulling these jokes. Like, what back of the van? I'm here at the terminal waiting for you to pick me up. Oh, that's how invisible I was. I was left at the airport assuming I was already in. Yeah.
Jesus, that's bad.
Yeah.
But fantastic fantastic segueing there. Because well done, splendid work.
Yeah.
Before we go on to that, because that is a whole incredibly huge, diverse subject that I'm sure encapsulates
this page.
just a little bit, so much of your life, and also how it will affect your professional working life and everything as well. Before we go into that, We have a question. In your opinion, how does social media change your business area, personal connections and references?
Does or did?
Let's say both. Let's say before coronavirus and now, I suppose it's limited anyway, isn't it, really?
Yeah. For my hireability, for my being employed, it had little to no effect. Almost all of the hiring is done explicitly on word of mouth. Either crew being shared between bands or them sharing the same production management company. It was always, I would get hired by the next band because of my work with the previous band. And I didn't, like most of the time, I didn't even need to ask. It was just like, are you available? Say yes, you're confirmed. Okay, I'm available. Deal, done. I don't know how that is now, but going partially back to the segue to be, it has changed a lot now because of who and what I am.
Okay.
Regardless of social media, like social media for me has had little effect. I have had a website for my own company since '95. Since 2002, focused on music. It has virtually no traffic, and I'm sure that's also connected to the, if there was no me, how could I sell myself? It took me a decade to even get business cards.
Wow.
No.
That's what Vista Print's for.
A, I didn't need them. B, I didn't know how to sell myself anyway. I couldn't even sell myself, let alone you.
Yeah. Okay. Let us delve into the realm of your gender dysphoria and also what led to your transitioning to who you are now. Okay, so where shall we start the story? Where is good for you?
45 years ago, in a galaxy far, far, far away from here. I've known that I wasn't a boy when I was 10, probably earlier even.
Okay.
But I felt so guilty towards the universe, towards myself, towards my parents for not being happy with what I was given, for wanting to change the rules, for, to use an analogy, if you play a game of poker, do you ask the dealer, please give me new cards?
Okay.
You don't. Therefore, I didn't. I was, I felt, for lack of a better description, quite morally burdened for even considering wanting to ask for new cards. Therefore, I didn't. So how could I cope with it? Just make myself a robot.
So
strip everything. Yeah, go.
Sorry, just something I wanted to ask. So when you say, this is a question that's always intrigued me, is when you say you were born a boy or of the male sex, and you or of the physicality, I suppose.
I now have learned to describe it in a different way, as follows. Being trans doesn't mean I was born a different gender. It means I was mistaken for a different gender at birth than the one I am.
Oh, okay.
Basically, the doctor delivering me and, oh, congratulations, parents, it's a boy. They made a mistake based on a very limited set of facts, namely what kind of genitalia that baby produces.
So does it make you?
Yeah. So
when you said that you say you didn't feel, you didn't feel that you were the assigned sex you'd been given.
Yeah, correct.
What does that feel like?
It felt like being forced to play a role, that isn't mine. Wasn't supposed to be mine. I basically, like, imagine you auditioned for Shrek.
Mm.
Oh, no, wait. You auditioned for a role, but you got assigned Shrek. You didn't even want it, but you can't take off the uniform.
Okay. That's a good analogy.
That's basically what I dealt with for just over 30 years. Actively conscious of it. Possibly started around when I was 5, but from when I was 10 on, I knew this wasn't right.
So did your entire being feel wrong, or were there certain parts that you could accept more than others? Or because obviously for somebody who's never experienced this in their life,
Mm-hmm.
and probably to a lot of people again who've never experienced it, it's a very hard concept to kind of grasp.
Absolutely, and it's I'm happy that it isn't. This is something you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. Like, Mike, you now have this Shrek uniform. You cannot take it off anymore. It's there. Deal with it.
Mm.
I noticed that was done with me. All I could do was try to make it somewhat palatable, is strip all of my emotions from my being, strip subjectiveness from my person. I would turn into this objective being.
Mm.
It shouldn't come as a surprise. My first job desire was a cartographer.
Okay.
And I now see that as I want to be able to objectively and empirically make a model representation of reality. My propensity towards spreadsheets is exactly the same. I would mimic reality in spreadsheets. Empirically provable hard facts, called everything objective, no subjectivity. That's what I did. I would often, like, I've started referring to that period in my life as if there was a lineup of a corpse, a zombie, a robot, and me, you would not be able to confidently pick me as the live one.
So you were literally just running on, as you say, almost it sounds like everything in life you were just trying to strip away any unknowns and go for just purely fact, as you say, empirically correct.
Yeah. I became this obnoxious kid that had what is now called Wikipedia, then encyclopedia knowledge. I would quote facts and figures and everything. Somebody would say, that's east. I say, no, that's east. I was that annoying kid and adult. But yeah, I had become very resigned. I had sort of accepted my fate. Okay, I need to pretend to be a boy. What is it that boys do? How do boys things?
Badly, usually.
The bare minimum of it, I sort of managed to, sort of get away with performing them. I did play football, but I wasn't your manly football player. The whole dating thing, that was just a terrible disaster. I always held the belief, like, no, I'm just too shy, I'm just too insecure, just too whatever. But basically it was like, how could I play the boy's role in the courting game if I don't know what a boy does, how a boy does, what a boy should do, what the goal of a boy is?
It sounds, it's probably going to be a really bad comparison, but when I've heard,
it probably isn't.
when I've heard people who suffer with things like Asperger's or autism, and when they try to say when they try to deal and interact in a world that doesn't make a lot of sense to them, there's certain social cues they don't pick up on. They have trouble relating feelings and expressing themselves, and they feel that they have to, again, play a role to try and fit in to society.
Yeah, and that is not a bad comparison at all. Like I said, it wasn't going to be. There's actually a strong correlation between gender dysphoria and autism.
Really, that's interesting.
There actually is. Yeah. There's no causality, but there's a strong correlation. And if you see anything on the autism spectrum disorder as sort of like a communication breakdown, because that's what I think it is. There is a cue coming towards me, but I don't interpret the cue as you, neurotypical person, would. I interpret, like, for instance, the red or green traffic lights at a junction. You see the red light, oh, danger, I need to stop. That's the rule. Someone with ASS could know that they should stop because that's what they learned. But they could also see, oh, wow, that's like 700 faceted red dots making up one giant blue light, red light. And the same goes with when they're on the active part of communication. They would say things where you would probably say, you shouldn't say that. But they don't have that communication, social cue skill that neurotypical people would have. And they sometimes see themselves in a way that you and I don't see ourselves or them. And that is where gender dysphoria comes sort of into play again. Because I look in the mirror and there's a communication breakdown between what I feel, what I see in the mirror, or what I see when I touch me.
Same as I suppose similar to is it body dysphoria? What's the term for?
Body dysmorphia.
Yeah, dysmorphia.
Which could be the same. Another thing that is more relatable to people, I think, because body dysmorphia is as unknown and as that's new. That's the latest hype. As gender dysphoria, eating disorders. And then especially the eating disorders where weight control has become like a goal. And then this person, you and I see this person already being skin and bones, 50 kilos. But that person sees themselves in the mirror as someone of about 200 kilos and still needs to lose another 10 before it's acceptable.
Yeah, that's...
That kind of mismatch between what you feel, what you see, what you know, what you want.
Yeah.
Between people with eating disorders and people with gender dysphoria, that is somewhat relatable. It's not the same at all, but that makes it more relatable, I've noticed. If I show that side, and most people know what anorexia is, most people know what bulimia is.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, yeah, now I understand.
We've got a few questions.
They might not, but yeah.
I just realised my microphone has been gradually creeping down. I have been getting more and more flaccid as time goes on. I do apologise. It doesn't happen to me normally. Just give me 15 minutes and I'll be fine again. Right, we have TL is actually my friend TL James in America. He's actually hitting on a point that I think we're going to cover, the natural progression of mixing, obviously, what you've been through with your work, which my thought is that the music industry tends to be more liberal than average. Being trans, would you agree, or do you feel you face the same hurdles as with any other occupations? That's one that we will definitely come to, because it did have a huge impact on your work life, didn't it? Yes. Just a little bit.
Almost as big as the lack of Corona beer. Almost.
Carrie said it sounds like such a difficult experience to go through. How did you get through all of that mentally? I think we will come on to that as well. Chelsea, really appreciating this personal story being told. The autism person mask is one I was thinking while hearing this talk. My friend Chelsea, she looks after a friend of hers whose daughter has quite severe autism. She's absolutely lovely. She's hilarious, but she suffers with a lot of the tics, and obviously you have to be very careful what you say to her. She will take everything literally. So again, it's very easy to upset her and cause problems for her. Carrie says the problem with society is that if you don't fit into the norms, the immediate reaction is to dislike it or want to shut it away. I think now there's probably more acceptance than there probably ever has been. It's a gradually evolving process where people are starting to realise that there are all these issues that people have. We don't fully. And again, for me, it's very difficult to understand. For example, if you take somebody with anorexia, and if this person is skin and bone, and you stand her next to someone who is a lot bigger, and you say, "Are you telling me that you are bigger than this person?" To me, that defies the reality of physics, logic, your own sight. It's so hard to almost look at the sky and say, well, the sky is blue, and someone's going, no, it's not, it's green. Do you think you can ever really appreciate these kind of things unless you have experienced a degree of it yourself?
Yes and no. Like, should we? Do I need to jump? Do I need to go bungee jumping to know whether or not I like it, or whether or not I understand what bungee jumping is? No. But yeah, to some degree, it would be good if people could, but we have a tool, empathy. Once the empathy dial is opened up, without having that same lived experience, I can try to imagine what it could be like. And I'm never going to be quite right with what it feels like, but I make an effort and I try to get some level of understanding. Like, do I know what it is to be bald? No. Do I want to? No. Can I empathize with you being bald? If it is an issue for you, oh, hell yes.
It's a lot cooler than wearing a wig. Like I said, I've tried wearing wigs at gigs and things like that, and as soon as hair starts getting in your face and in your mouth, and you're like, be gone with you. I will stick to my chrome dome.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is definitely an issue. And I wanted to respond to something that Chelsea asked, but
sure,
I forgot what I wanted to say. I'll get back to it.
That's right. Chelsea said the autism person masking is one I was thinking when hearing this talk. That's what Chelsea said.
Yeah, no, I'm actually reading it myself, but I don't actually know what I wanted to say anymore. I know I wanted to respond to it, but I forgot what it was. It'll come back to me.
We have time. We have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
At what point, obviously,
and what Carrie said about the going, like, dealing with it mentally. Yeah, it was a bit of a mountain to climb. It still is in some aspects, but having come from absolute, like, deep down there, climbing up. Yes, climbing is hard, but is it harder than staying down there? Yeah. If you're unaware that you're down there, it's all right. to some extent, because misery loves company. You're there, you're unaware, you're blissfully unaware. But once you know that being down there is not good for you, you don't want to be there. It's damn hard to get out of it, but it's less hard than staying there.
Okay.
Was it hard? Is it hard? Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, also the show must go on. There's a bit of that, just powering through it. That helped me. But I think it also, during my transition, pushed me back a little, because I didn't fully open up the passion, the heart dials, but slightly more of the I need to get through this dial.
So that's, again, another beautiful segue. It's like you've done this before. Oh, we're getting some little bit of signal breakups, but we can work through it. We shall power through. So when did you, obviously going through this for quite a few years, massively impactful on your life, when did you decide that you wanted to transition? Or that it was the right time?
Yeah, well, I never decided I wanted to. Life told me I have to.
Okay.
It was the summer of 2016, August. I was somewhere between the Netherlands, Finland, the US, Netherlands, Germany, and US. I don't know exactly where I was. I do remember that I was in a hotel at night, staring at the ceiling, and I'll paraphrase it as, you silly cow, just accept it, you're a woman. And the next day, I woke up with a sense of self, a sense of self-worth, a sense of self-esteem, a sense of self-awareness. And despite all of the transition being a lot of hard work, physically, legally, financially, that was literally all just boxes to tick, cherries on the pie, if you will.
Yeah.
Because instantly there was a me. And being self-confident came soon after. Self-care became a thing that I was allowed to do because there was a self that I could take care of. And self-love had to show up and did. And ta-da!
See, that it's such a strange concept, isn't it? That you can, with an acceptance like that, I suppose it, again, another comparison, but it must be that if you can accept, for example, if you're gay and you've been living as a straight person, once you can actually let that in, then there is a freedom that comes with. This is a really bad comparison, but it comes back to the old baldness thing. For and this is probably the closest I can ever get to that kind of freeing sensation. Is I started losing my hair very young, and as a young man, you're obsessed with your hair. You're paranoid about everything. It's thinning out your
virility.
Yeah, it's crushing your confidence and self-esteem. And then I decided to shave it off, and in a very pathetic way, it completely changed my life. Because it was something that you no longer had to worry about. And believe me, I'm not comparing shaving your head to a transition, anything like that. But that's the closest that I can get to.
I think, but I think you actually can, because, like, if you look at it objectively from the outside, what is going bald versus transition or finally coming out of the closet? Yeah. In that aspect, totally right. But for you, the mountain you need to climb, whether or not I say it's a speed bump or the Mount Everest, for you, it's an insurmountable object.
True.
Once you've scaled it, you've scaled it. I scaled my insurmountable object. And like just like happiness, can you scale happiness? Can you scale climbing a mountain? No. You had your hurdle to deal with, male pattern baldness. I had mine to deal with, gender dysphoria. You scaled yours, and you became a happier person because you no longer had the burden of trying to deal, trying to cope, trying to mask what was bothering you. I did the same.
Oh, we have a question, and she's asked if you, actually that it's from Atta again in Turk. She says, "Do you feel yourself almost woman, or between somewhere man and woman, or do you feel completely a woman?"
I am a woman. I was a woman. Now I finally have the body of a woman. But to answer the question using words that people know or have heard of, binary and non-binary. It's maybe that's what the question is about. I went from, for the outside, binary man to binary woman. But I could have felt like, no, I belong somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Non-binary, or somewhere without non-binary. But I am binary transgender. And I am a woman. I feel like a woman. I look like a woman. I smell like a woman. I talk like a woman, I hope.
Yes, you do.
I am a woman. Yeah.
Excellent. Chelsea says, as I always say, everyone's degree of shit is different. Yes, it's...
That's exactly that I try to deal with. And dealing with the shit is hard until you dealt with it. And then it's just shit in the past. But there's no comparing of, oh, my shit was bigger than yours. No, there isn't.
I think there's something, especially when
it makes no sense.
When you were saying, and you're dealing with things, you just get on and deal with it, don't you? I've noticed people can be going through the most horrendous things in life, and to the outsider, they can be like, how on earth can you be dealing with this? But when you're in it, and you literally are taking things on a day-to-day basis a lot of the time, aren't you? You are just dealing with whatever input is coming your way and finding solutions with whatever you have available to just get through the day.
It's one of the ways. Look at when you've lost a dear one. Do you get on with it? Do you sit down and cry? Do you do a combination? Do you flee? Do you... With loss and grief, there's different ways of dealing with it, or pretending to be dealing with it. And put your blinders on and just keep on going. In some way, it's dealing with. In another way, it's actually not dealing. Sorry, in another way, it's actually not dealing with, because I don't acknowledge everything that I'm feeling necessarily.
Yeah.
By just quick, need to get these things done.
I think what I probably if I put it a bit better, what I mean is that things a lot of the time seem completely insurmountable to people on the outside, but say when we are dealing with it firsthand, it's a different kind of thing. If we were to step back, a lot of the time we do step back from things we've been through and how on earth did I get through that? But I think when you are in it, because you're so submerged in it, and I say you are making decisions left, right and centre, you're dealing with things one way or another as you go, it does seem different at the time. I know there's times when I look back how I got through certain periods in my life, and you think, God, if that was to happen now, how would I deal with it? And the difference is, generally you just do. Somehow you do, whether it's whether it's bad, whether it's through learnt experience, or whether you're just bumbling your way through, you will deal with things somehow. The human body and brain is very good at getting you through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I did the previous 30 years. I don't know how I did it. I did it. People actually liked me for it. But it wasn't me. I wasn't there, and I would never, ever go back to it.
So actually, that's a very good point. So what was the response to when you transitioned? How did people take it?
Very well, I should say. the first thing that I did was like to tell my partner. And she was like, oh, okay. But when I told her, I said, like, I don't want to wear men's clothing anymore. I want to wear women's clothing. I think there's more to it than that, but she said, yeah, okay, sure, fine. We'll see where it goes. And she's been really instrumental in helping me through my transition during those first few months. One of the kindest things she said was actually when I asked her, because we have this tendency to try and label ourselves and the others. I tried to label myself to potentially gain a bit of identity from it. So I asked, am I your lesbian boyfriend? And she said, no, today you're my boyfriend, tomorrow you're my wife.
Aww.
That was and is so beautiful what she said. I did forget what the question was, though.
That's all right. No, it was just asking how people reacted to it. I mean, for like close friends and family, did it come as a surprise, or was it something that you had spoken to people about?
No, it came as a complete surprise to everybody. My sister took it like she does. Oh, okay. So you're wearing a bra now? Doing? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. Oh, is that maybe going to? Yeah, maybe. My girlfriend and me will decide on that, but yeah, possibly. Oh, okay. And that was it.
Excellent. That's the response you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And not everybody was as receptive of that, but no one was negative. And professionally speaking, at a certain point, now I'll fast forward to February 17 on a weekend trip that my girlfriend and me took to Budapest. I asked her permission to please go as Laura to be. I didn't have a name then. And she said, yeah, sure. She literally had a handbag with probably some underwear. I had a full suitcase for one weekend because I didn't know what I was maybe going to wear, whether or not I felt comfortable wearing this or that or that. We did 25 miles, me on high heels and a wig, and it felt amazing. I didn't feel any pain, not even, there were no blisters.
How on? I've walked around Cambridge at a Rocky Horror Show.
There were heels 2 sizes too short, too small.
I think I must have walked for maybe 3 miles in Cambridge in heels, and that me and this other guy who was I met along the way who was going to the show as well, we both looked at each other. I think we both ended up changing shoes with each other just to see if it made it feel better. We were both broken men by the end of the night. Yeah. How women, how anybody wears heels for long periods of time, I have no idea.
I did 20 miles in heels, not even a blister, and there were 2 sizes too small. But the power of, like, on the flight going there, I wore Laura's clothing, but I didn't express myself as a woman. I was just a person wearing female clothes in a unisex way. Every time on the plane, it was like, Mister, what do you want? Do you like some more, sir? Sir. It actually disturbed me a bit that they didn't ask once, like, would you like some? Not once. So when it was time to fly back, I had told her, I am doing this, and I'm actually not going back anymore. I am going to stay here because this is where I like being. Got through security, no issue. Got on the plane. Ma'am, would you like some? Good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, would you like some? Ma'am. etc. I knew this was right. It felt right, and I didn't go back anymore. And a few days later, I think, Blind Guardian had announced and started doing their crew call, like, okay, next month we're going to have shows again. Who's available and blah blah blah. Who's taking what gear? And I said, guys, sit down. I've got something to tell you. And there was this email where I basically explained my story with a smile on the cheek and some mockery, self-mockery, and yeah, that was it. The coldest response I got was, "I will support you 100%."
Well, that's okay.
And that was the most negative one.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it was really good, and actually, even just random people, I have had 2 negative experiences in all of my transition. 2.
That's astounding.
And
I think
it's unfortunately is. I prepared myself mentally and physically to basically be wearing Teflon all the time because I was going to get hurt, either physically or mentally, by people not agreeing with or not liking. Unfortunately, the one time, one of the 2 times, was at Bloodstock Open Air, a festival where you would not expect anything like this to happen. And after I told Vicky and Ellen about what had happened, they were so incredibly sorry for what had happened. Namely, I was there with Blind Guardian, and right before us there was Testament on stage, and they had some VIP guests at the side of the stage. And as the band were taking their bow, I was ready to push my cases onto the stage to start working. And keep in mind, this was the third day in a row after doing festival playing. So I had a bit of a fuzzy thing going on here and didn't have the time to actually look at it, deal with it, or even apply concealer. So this person, as I was walking past, "You're one ugly beard woman." And I was like,
"And you are a..."
Actually, no, because of the show must go on.
Yeah.
I just left my cases for a second, turned around, said, "Oh, thank you," and kept pushing my cases. Had I done what I should have done, was at that moment, wait here 1 second, run to the stage manager, tell the stage manager what happened to me, and that person would have been very unceremoniously be receiving a boot fitting in a certain spot, then have their VIP pass revoked, and then be escorted off the premises to never come back. That's what I should have done, but I was too focused on get on with the show that I basically just gave him I'm Teflon, bye.
Yeah. We got some questions actually. From TL. I took a trans neighbour to the doctor yesterday. Today, other neighbours chewed me out on it. A few wouldn't talk to me. Still can't understand why there is so much hate, and I can't understand why people get to that point. The ugly side of some humans. Yeah, it also comes down to what just happened to you there. There seems to be with some people, it's the fact of, some people think, and I've just realised my camera is slowly been rotating itself. And this comes to the social media. Obviously, you get a lot of hate on social media for people. It's the fact that people can't, if they feel something, why do people feel so obliged to just open their mouth and let it come forth? Whatever happened to, if you haven't got anything nice to say, keep your mouth shut. Why is it so important for people to spew bile?
Well, definitely there's the social media aspect of it. We have gotten a keyboard. We must use it at someone else's detriment, preferably. Add to that the basic premises of the Frankenstein novel. We do not know it. We fear it. It must probably eat our cows and chickens and women. Therefore, we must oust it with prongs
and fire
and torches and go. But as to the person asking that question, when I hear that kind of questions, and especially this person then being chewed out by their neighbors, think 1960s USA and lover, just for associating with someone who's marginalized, you're being marginalized by association. That's like horrible to the nth degree.
Yeah.
Because there's really no logical basis for it.
That's kind of one of the things that's always struck me. I know with human beings we have this wonderful, horrendous thing that we always do where we have to try and fit ourselves into boxes. We don't like the idea of uncertainties. We have to be. I'm part of. I guess it's the tribalism that goes back. We've always been part of a tribe of some description. So, and I think you notice it even in like trans communities or gay communities. Even I remember back when I was young. When you were at college and people were experimenting, the reality is we're all just individuals. We all are just a massive, great cascade of grey area. That's the reality. Yeah. But everyone, we can't deal with that, I think, because it's a lonely place to be, not knowing where we fit. So we tend to create these little boxes that we can drop into, whether it's in music scenes, whether it's you can only be part of this particular metal scene if your band doesn't have keyboards. If you have a T-shirt that you've owned since 1985 that's been washed 1,000 times, you have to have an extreme knowledge of their entire back catalogue. It's that elitism that comes with a group that we kind of throw ourselves into because we feel, if we're part of this group and we tick all the right boxes, we're living life in the correct way.
Yeah, and it's... especially in subcultures, that's like the bigger thing behind it, I think. And then you can transcend what you're saying to other things outside of music. We want to belong, but we also want to be unique.
Do you think we do?
Subculture, by definition, is made up of unique people trying to belong by looking for similar traits. But as far as you go to labels, I can use any damn label I wish when I apply it to myself. I cannot and should not apply any label to you ever. I can ask you, what are your labels? And then respectfully use that. But if I label you according to my own frame of reference, I am absolutely guaranteed going to fail with labeling you, because I'm not the one who's supposed to label you. You are.
It's very difficult, though, isn't it? Because obviously we've been used to the idea of, for example, two genders for a very long time, and the idea, the idea is creeping in, obviously, of multiple, people having their different terminologies for whatever they'd like to be called, and you do unfortunately get clashes between these, don't you? You get some people who will label them something, and I think the problem is when societies divide off, instead of just saying, well, we're all human, let's just leave it at that, we're human beings, and as they break down into more subcultures and subgenders or sub this, that and the other, you start to get clashes between people, because I don't know whether people start to get more confused. I mean, I know I read a little while ago about there was an issue with some feminists not liking the idea of trans women, saying that they're women because to women it's the the taking back of the vagina, the power of being the woman, and then to them it's men saying they're women, and then you get this confrontation. Now, is labeling a necessity in life, do you feel, or do you think it's just something that we naturally try to do with ourselves to feel like we're part of something, rather than just accepting that well, we're just all unique. We're all individual.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of human nature. We want to belong because we're family creatures by nature, but not always your blood family is who you feel you belong to. So you look for other groups or individuals to belong to. And if you use labels for that, fine. But that is you doing that to belong with someone, belong to some group. If you start labeling someone to other than, you're absolutely making a mistake.
Yeah.
And regardless of what basis you other someone else on, you are making a mistake. And add to that, invented by the people in the power, how can you keep them divided? By making sure they know they're divided, by setting them up against each other.
Oh, of course.
And
the oldest trick in the book.
If you also manage to make them believe that this meme that I use every now and then, equal rights for others does not mean less rights for you. It's not by. But we are taught to believe that if I give you rights, I need to give up mine or part of mine. And that's absolutely, undeniably
idiotic.
Not true. Yeah. Even idiotic. Yeah. But if the people in power manage to make you believe that and live by it, divide and conquer, let them eliminate each other so there's more pie for me, because they keep fighting for scraps rather than half of the pie.
Well, this is why I've always really struggled to understand sexism, racism, issues with people of whatever genders, because the fact is, where, for example, the colour of your skin is dictated by your parents. Your parents. That is the only real factor.
Not even necessarily.
No, maybe not.
Not even necessarily.
And you are, whatever you're labelled, whether you're labelled German, whether you're labelled Dutch, whether you're labelled, happens to be the place you were born in. It's so none of that.
Most of the times.
Most of the time, there's always exceptions for everything.
Yeah.
But taking this for example,
and that's the case with.
Yeah, and with obviously, if you're a man, you're a woman, or whatever you want to identify as. The fact is, we all come from the same point. We're all born into the world, and we're just all human beings. There doesn't need to be being one or the other of anything. Does not degrade you as a human being. The idea that it does is ludicrous. There's no reason. I know people have If people, I mean, I grew up in a household of very strong-willed, intelligent women. So there was me and my father. So I'm used to being around women who know what they want to do, exceptionally talented at whatever they go into. And it drilled into me at a very young age that when people say there's jobs for men, jobs for women, that's a complete fallacy. The only thing that would probably limit you in any way, or shape or form, which would in any job, would be your physical strength. And that can be whether you're I would not last 5 minutes on a building site. I would be a broken wreck at the end of the day. But I've worked with women who would be able to probably carry 2 hods of bricks up ladders without any problem whatsoever. So all the evidence is out there to show that none of this matters. But yet we still invest.
Absolutely, but somebody decided that it's easier to keep us divided, whether it's on skin color or what's between our legs, or whether or not we're neurotypical or neurodivergent, whether or not we're able-bodied or not, whether or not anything you can think of, somebody will try to make you pit yourself against someone else who isn't.
We've got quite a few questions
because that's
rolling
the
in.
easiest way. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Bring 'em on.
Let's have a look. Let's have a scroll up here. Right. Hang on. Where are we going back? Okay, so Chelsea said that's a really heartwarming to hear that you have such a positive experience. That goes back to obviously when you were telling everyone around you. And Atta's response to about people giving their opinion when it wasn't asked for. We're all the keyboard hero and we're all keyboard heroes and heroines. Yes. Chelsea said, just to clarify, I wrote my comment whilst having hearing most experiences are positive, but then I heard the horrible person story. Don't want to delay to confuse. I don't think there was any confusion.
No.
Carrie says, I really struggle with this. I don't care who you are. If you're a good person and not an arsehole, then we will be fine. People put up way too many barriers as a reason not to like someone or to get to know someone. That's your insecurities, not mine. Very true. Carrie also said, the thing I remember you saying to me before you transitioned and you were getting an idea of clothes you liked and trying them on privately or in hiding. And that makes me sad too, as if I had a friend on the same journey, I would be going with them and allowing them to be comfortable with who they want to be. Chelsea agrees. Atta says we need to find solutions to live better, free and wealthy. Well, better, free, wealthy and healthy, I think would be nice. But someone produces these problems to control us. The scale should be, Chelsea says, the scale should be as you are as a majority good or you're a majority bad. Done. That's the scale of what we need to know as a human being about other human beings. Yeah, if you're an arsehole or not. I think that generally kind of says everything we need, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, I would still further specify that as are we bad or do we do bad?
Oh, here's a philosophy.
I think they're not quite the same.
Do you think human beings are inherently bad and we just have to try really hard to be good?
No, I don't think so. I think we're inherently neutral, but our acts, whether good or bad, could make us appear good or bad. And then history will decide, depending on which side of history they are on, whether or not we were good or bad. But our acts could define us. Our beings are neutral. At least that's how I'd like to see it.
I'm much more of a pessimist. I think most human beings are assholes, and then the ones who aren't are doing a really, really good job at fighting it. And they're the ones who I think are worth knowing because they're making the effort to not be an asshole.
I sometimes act like that in the sense of when somebody does something really nice, I will go out of my way to let them know that I appreciate the nice thing they did. But I'm also hyper aware of the fact that, no, I shouldn't have to say thank you for having been nice, because being nice is supposed to be the norm. Right?
I think that's
changed. It's glasses half full, glasses empty, or half empty, or glasses actually piss.
It's piss. It's definitely piss.
Yeah.
Generally
I agree, but I make more distinction between being and acting.
I think if we're allowed, especially with things like social media and everything, I think that unfortunately has shown the reality of human beings when we take away consequences of our actions. I think if you go back several hundred years where human beings depended on each other a lot more, whether you had smaller communities where people had to learn to live together, you had to sacrifice a bit of your individuality to get on with everyone else. And we all played a part. Now that people can be very insular, they can be very self-absorbed, I think you tend to see a lot more of the nasty side coming out because people feel I don't have to be nice if I don't want to. I can be an arsehole. And
absolutely. Yeah. And it's also because of the lack of consequences, we're basically being trained to believe like, oh, I can get away with it, so I'll do some more. And if you then have people using a megaphone saying, you can get away with it, do like me, then that just gets amplified.
Oh, so we lost you a little bit there. I think stream just needs a chance to catch up. I've got a couple of questions about the information that when it comes to sort of the subject of trans, I get the feeling there's a lot of disinformation out there, and I don't know whether that comes from. There seems to be, I think, like with anything, there was, for example, you have like certain movements, certain new ways of life, certain expressions that people come up with that are an essential thing that needs to be talked about because they obviously broach a subject of the human psyche and the human condition that we need to address, we need to acknowledge is there, and we need to try and learn more about it, understand why people feel the way that they do. You know, with all these different things, whether it's bulimia, whether it's anorexia, whether it's autism, whether it's dysmorphias. But do you find that then, along with those, comes people who almost just jump on the bandwagon and a lot of the time will cause more problems and issues for the actual people who are the general sufferers? Like, for example, this might not be a great example, but with the Me Too movement, now it was an essential thing that needed to happen. We can all agree on that. But then you would get the initial people it helped, you know, women who have been sexually abused, who have been raped, who have gone through some absolute horrors by men in power. But then you would then get your extremists who would come in and say things like having a man touch you on the knee is akin to rape. And things like that, which to me is a ridiculous thing to say. Yes, it still shouldn't happen, and your personal space is your personal space, and people should respect it. But same as there are degrees in anything, me flicking somebody on the nose is not the same as me stabbing them in the head. You know, there are degrees, and the same with people who claim to be trans. Like, for example, in certain schools and things, we all know in schools when trends come along, as young, impressionable people, we tend to jump in on trends. You know, even if we don't particularly understand them or feel them to the full extent of what they are. Do you think there's a lot of people who would claim they are trans, but who actually are sort of jumping on a bandwagon and do not feel the genuine article, perhaps?
No. Like, from the point of view where, like, ooh, being trans is cool, I could possibly with the most positive outlook, possibly say, like, yeah, there might be some, but what is being transgender? And now I'm not talking about what is actually happening in your body, in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, but what is happening with you socially. Yay, I'm trans. That is basically the same as, especially if you're a white male, the very top of the food chain when it comes to privilege. I was a mostly white male to the outside world, never to me, but to the outside world I was, until I was 41. I was at the 25-meter tower, the pool, no safety net underneath me, taking a nosedive straight down. What rational thinking person would do that just for fun, just for, ooh, I get to score cool points? No, you do that by having the right phone. You do that by having the right, I don't know, by liking the right social media platform. Just claiming you're trans for the fad value, I absolutely don't believe that it is the case.
Okay.
Just like how many people, if you look at how other people see being transgender, you're crazy, you're sick, you're trying to change your body, you're a man, just live like a man. It's BS that you're trying to say you're a woman. I say I'm a cat, right? Those kind of people that say it's a mental disorder. How many people in a clear mind would say, I'm schizophrenic, I have multiple personality syndrome? How many people would say that and think it's cool? No one, right? No one would say, just for being cool, I'm transgender. Yeah, maybe they could say, haha, I am trans too, because yesterday I wore a dress. That's not saying I'm trans. That is just making conversation. I think there's a big difference there. And if someone says they're trans or non-binary, you better believe them, and you better commend them for their bravery in having said so.
Would you say, for people who do identify probably in their teenage years, and say there's a lot of experimenting that goes on in your teenage years, you're trying to find your feet, who you are as a person. I don't know what the statistics are, but I remember hearing that there's a certain percentage who, as they grow older, no longer identify as trans.
I know the stats, and that starts with preteen already, or even like pre-kindergarten. Identifies a young age as, this body is not mine. A certain percentage of them later in life do no longer say those things. But what the stats don't say is how many of them say, well, I thought I was, but I am not. Set against, well, I know I am, but this is just not going to happen. The social burden, the financial burden, the mental burden is just too high. I'll just get on with it. Those stats don't distinguish between those two.
Okay.
Just as on the very sad side of what this also touches on, the very high suicide rate among transgender people. The naysayers will say, well, you see, they couldn't live with themselves being monsters. Therefore, they did what they should have done years ago, namely end their lives. And that's an absolute atrocity to say that, think that, and make other people feel that. The sad reality, however, is that many transgender people end up attempting suicide, some of them unfortunately succeeding in it, because of the societal pressure, because of the societal, you're just being ousted from society. You're basically like, go there with the freaks, get out, you're Frankenstein, you can't be here. Estranged by the family, fired from their job, no longer able to financially support themselves, no more friends because they're not as passing as someone else says they should be. Depression, suicide. That's unfortunately a very sad truth.
I just wondered, because the stream keeps.
Sorry for making it really heavy.
No. This is honestly, it's all subjects that you. Again, I hear so many different things from. This is the reason I love speaking to people who actually live the life of a subject, because then you get to hear first-hand experience.
Lived experience.
Yeah, exactly. No, I was just wondering, have you got another screen up and running at the moment? Because we're getting a bit of glitching. I don't know if it's my broadband or your broadband. Have you got anything else running at all, or is it? No, that's all right. It might just be the signal.
No, my connection isn't too wonderful. I've got like the low budget version of internet.
No,
but it should still be 20 megabits. Yeah,
no,
that's
cool.
a glitch. Yeah.
I was going to ask, so with people who, again, there's various stats out there. How accurate they are, I don't know. When it comes to obviously people suffering with is it dysmorphia? No, what's the phrase?
Body dysmorphia.
Gender dysmorphia.
No, gender dysphoria.
Dysphoria.
Sorry, gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
And dysphoria is the antonym of euphoria.
Okay. Got it.
Right. Euphoria, dysphoria, and body dysmorphia is something disconnected, but there could be an overlap.
Okay.
And on the to maybe further talk about the dysphoria versus the euphoria. Almost every person, just like they're not 100% straight or 100% gay, almost all people are not 100%. They're assigned sex. They're assigned gender at birth. Have you ever thought like, ooh, wouldn't it be nice to have boobs?
Always.
And then move on because it was just a fleeting thought. Yeah. Well, yeah, of course, who wouldn't? But so many people will have had that one fleeting moment of itch, like, ooh, my gender itches. Ooh, wouldn't it be nice if, or what if could I maybe just for one day? A person with gender dysphoria feels that every single day. It's like an itch that you can't scratch.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away.
So
and most people just get on with it.
So for people who do suffer, transitioning, how much of that would you say is I mean, obviously every case is going to be different. As I think out of everything we've talked about, the one thing we can take away from this, like the conversation, is that every human being is unique. So you know, you can't sort of put
Absolutely.
a set of rules to anybody. But how beneficial does going through the change and transitioning, how much does that help the mental health? Is it known to be a really, really beneficial thing? I know there are obviously horror stories of people who have transitioned and then found that it wasn't the source of their, you know, whatever mental problems they were suffering with.
The solution. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, there's going to be studies that support and disprove it. But the general consensus is that, especially with younger people, once they are allowed by their parents, by their government, by their school, by whomever, allowed to live life with their desired gender, if you want to call it that way, most of their, if you want to call them mental disorders or just not getting on in life, fade like snow in the sun. Like it's not to say all of it will be fixed, but these people, like young kids that are not allowed to transition, they need to stay with their dress, they can't wear pants, they will be maybe like I was, a horrible robot, apathetic, silent, resigned, depressed, sad, what have you, neurotic maybe even. Lots of studies show that once transition is allowed, those feelings disappear.
Okay.
Like should you then say, a child says, "Mommy, I want a dress." Should you then automatically say, "Let's transition"? No.
No.
The child needs to have like a prolonged, persistent wish, story, feeling, no matter how you describe it.
Actually, that's something. If we could touch on that, that's a very good point, because that was something that, again, through various channels that I hear these things, and you initially hear.
I was going there as well.
Yeah, you initially hear, for example, people say in usually kind of extremist views from one side or the other, and it will be something along the lines of children being told that they can transition at the age of so and so. Almost like, as you said, they've just gone into their parents and go, Mummy, I no longer want to be a boy, I want to be a woman. And they go, right, okay, here we go. Straight away, we're going to pop you full of various blockers and everything. The reality of what actually happens if a child, because I always struggled with the concept, because obviously not knowing enough about the subject, and the idea that, as children, we are still, again, we're in that learning who we are phase. If you would never ask,
absolutely,
you would never get a child to make a decision that would affect the rest of its life. Because you could say to a child, well, what do you want to be when you're older? I want to be a cow.
Fireman.
Yeah. Or I want to be a train. Okay, so we're not going to stick some wheels on you and pump you full of coal. So from that point of view, you can understand why you would not want to allow something in still the developmental stages, obviously mentally and physical, to make a decision that could affect them for the entire rest of their life. So what is the process?
Or worse, or worse still, where instead of the child saying, "Oh, Mummy, I want to be," following the extremist point of view, mother wishes she had a daughter, but she had a son. No. It is going to be a daughter. There's those people that say that as well, along the same extremist point of view. But on what actually happens, a preteen, whether 3 years old and cries whenever a dress is being put on, or a child 6, 7, 8, whatever age, having this persistent desire, keeps saying when going to bed, I wish I was, if I wake up tomorrow, I wish I am. What happens, like physically, what gets done? By the time normal puberty would start, at that point, not before, puberty blockers would be administered if the child indeed has this persistent feeling, desire, wish, what have you. Only then, puberty blockers are being administered. Nothing else is being done. Whether that kid socially lives in their birth gender or desired gender, or assigned gender, or desired gender, that is, well, one day you wear blue, one day you wear red. It doesn't make a difference. It's not going to change your life drastically. But the puberty blockers do something. But what do? They basically put you in the fridge on ice until you're either emancipated or an adult or considered able and stable to actually decide how and what you want to do.
Are there,
whether or not the feelings are still persistent?
Are there what are the, obviously there's going to be some, I would have thought, quite serious impacts on what it does to your body, prolonging puberty. What are the, obviously the downsides? You don't prolong, you delay.
Oh, or you prolong.
Sorry,
the onset.
sorry, that's what I mean. Yeah.
You push back. So instead of going into puberty at age 12, let's say you go into puberty at age 16. It could have certain side effects, like you don't grow to the full potential of length that you could have otherwise. But you don't know where you're going to end up if you take a left turn tonight instead of the right turn. You don't know what effect that's going to have 20 years down the road. So whilst there are obvious effects down the road, they're uncalculable. Ooh, I 50-cent worded. But also in the light that a child's and adolescent's body is extremely resilient and flexible and malleable, delaying that puberty with a few years is not going to be such a drastic thing. It's the same as when you were 15 and you skipped 3 nights in a row. The 4th day, you would just go and play a football game and score 5 goals and not know the difference. Try doing that now at our age. Skipping 1 night keeps us dead for a week because our bodies are not as resilient as they were then. So what are the irreparable damages done to delaying a child's puberty? Between immeasurable, incalculable, and me.
Well, Chelsea's just said, I don't disagree with it at all, but there isn't a lot of scientific evidence of delaying hormonal development while the human body carries on its natural life cycle progression.
That's what I'm talking about. And yes, there is some effect, but like delaying puberty isn't done from, let's say, 12 until 25. It's done from, let's say, 12 to 16. And those 4 years, they're going to have some impact, but you can't quite distinguish what impact they're going to have. And I'm not a scientist, but bouncing back is probably a good word. Children at that age bounce back.
Okay.
Better than we as 40-plus people. But yeah, it's impossible to distinguish and establish beforehand what the effect is going to be to this particular child. Look at it from a different point of view. Disallowing the child to put their life on hold for 4 years, what is that going to do? Now that is measurable, because that child is going to be miserable beyond belief, because that's basically, it's about to be Christmas. You've seen your parents dragging a giant bicycle-shaped or horse-shaped present, and it's there under the tree, and you're not allowed to touch it, and actually not at Christmas morning either, because we say so. How miserable is that child going to be?
And presuming all from when a child shows, obviously, that an interest in, or not an interest, but obviously the signs that they feel they are in the wrong body, it's not just a case of, you're not just taking the child's word for it the whole way. They are being assessed by psychiatrists, I believe. Is that true? It's not just, there's more to it than just a child saying, I don't want to be like this.
It's, yes and no. It depends what country you're in. But I know too little of what the transgender healthcare for adolescent people is like, what the protocol is there. But for adults, I can tell you, depending on where you live, it's either informed consent or diagnostics. Informed consent being, you go to the doctor, you say, I've got a headache. The doctor says, okay, I believe you. Here's some medication. Where informed consent is like one step beyond that.
Yeah.
But basically, so are you sure you feel this? Yes, I'm sure. Are you really sure? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Boom. Here you go. Where diagnostics is a whole set of therapy sessions to establish whether or not it is in fact, there. But more so, because this used to be the old way, the gatekeeping, we want to establish whether or not you actually are transgender or transgender enough. Currently, it is focused more on, do you know what comorbidity is?
Actually, I think No, enlighten me.
To simultaneously occurring diagnoses.
Okay.
Where one could cause or be caused or be uninfluenced by the other. But if there is a comorbidity, in this case, for instance, gender dysphoria, but also depression or agoraphobia or ASS, certain other diagnoses could get in the way of a successful transition. For instance, if you're agoraphobic, your social transition isn't going to be, because you'll be in your room, in your house, not set foot outside. And actually you don't want foreign people in your home either, because that's the same uncertainty that you feel when you are out there. Or when you're
well, I can imagine
when you've got anxiety disorder
or depression. I can imagine, because obviously depression greatly impacts your mental health. It can change the way you feel about things, your perception of things. It can cloud you in many different ways.
Yeah. And when that is like what commands your daily life, then to do something wow, like scaling that mountain and doing the transition, that is mentally very taxing. Yeah, do you have that energy to actually successfully do that? So in that case, you could what would most likely be done is trying to focus on the other thing, see if we can make that less of an issue, so that your transition can then be less problematic. And how this works for teens and preteens, I do not know. I would assume that a young child would not be just given blockers because it says, "Hey, I feel like a girl today."
Yeah.
It wouldn't just be given puberty blockers as if there were headache pills. No. That wouldn't happen. There's definitely monitoring happening.
And there has to be assessments going on, I would have thought, constantly in the background.
There will definitely be some kind of assessments, because whilst technically your GP could prescribe this, they don't. It's being prescribed by endocrinologists, and especially in countries where informed consent is not an option, you would first be assessed partially or fully before you get any access to any medication. And in the case of a preteen, that might be during assessment. With an adult, it happens after assessment.
Something I want to ask.
Also, because the urgent. No, I wanted to finish one. With adults, it's post-puberty. Therefore, there's no evolutionary urgency anymore, because you've already gone through puberty and now you're in your final state, so to speak. Whereas with adolescence and pre-adolescence, there is that urgency to, if this is indeed the case, we can help the child by making sure it's put on hold, instead of just continue assessing and then, oops, yeah, sorry, now we're too late, now you've grown a beard.
Yeah.
And still it's not being done lightly, but there's more of a sense of urgency there in preteens and teens.
We've got a bunch of questions we're going to come to in a second. There's something I did want to ask, actually, and it's an interesting concept. And again, I think it falls into human beings liking to label things and setting out rules for themselves and things. When we talk about, for example, like the idea of gender being malleable, every person is kind of, if you've got your stereotypical man and woman, we all float around somewhere kind of in the middle. Now, clothing-wise, there still seems to be a very specific divide between what are men's clothes and what are women's clothes. Now, as you were saying, why does there seem to be one? You can say if you're a young boy or a young girl and you're dressing in, I want to wear women's clothes, or why things are still designated as men or women's clothes. But if as some people claim to be, that there is, however many thousand genders in the world, how does that tie in with the people still choosing to categorize themselves in either men or women's clothing? It seems almost that one school of thought is further ahead and one school of thought, everyone still reverts back to the stereotype.
To some degree, a mix of both, I think. Gender is not even thousands. It's an analog dial. It's not a binary step. It's not a stepping system. So the more resolution you can find, the more resolution there is. No, the other way around. The resolution is always there, but you just haven't seen it. The Mandelbrot set. That's a good example. Because the society we are in is still very rigidly divided. This is for men, this is for women, the pink and the blue. Did you know that until about 1920, 1930, it was actually the other way around? No, you didn't.
Really?
It was it's a marketing thing.
Ah, interesting.
Some clothing manufacturer decided, well, you know what? Pink needs to be for girls. That's easier to market. But if you look at the color spectrum itself, blue and pink, even the soft B and the harsh P, which of the two colors is the stronger color, color-wise? Pink. It's a very strong color. Boys used to wear pink, girls used to wear blue. Or in the same way, now we decided dresses are for women. Your grandparents, when they were infants and still wore diapers, they didn't wear boys' pants.
No, they didn't.
Your grandparents' grandmother and your grandparents' grandfather both wore what we would now refer to as dresses, because you just button open in the bottom, let the poop out, close it up again.
We used to,
back to bed.
And older people used to wear night shifts, didn't they? And they both basically looked exactly the same. If you go sort of the Ebenezer Scrooge image, basically it's the same principle, isn't it? But then why is it?
Yeah. It's a marketing ploy. Yeah.
So then if you look at, again, I'm going to stereotype a bit here, just otherwise it's again, there's so many grey areas.
No,
but for example, if you look at...
To paint a picture, you need to sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then you can have, for example, a lesbian couple who people would class them as kind of either masculine looking or butch lesbians who are wearing the men's clothes. So there still even seems to be, in all of the grey area, it still falls back into these two roles when it comes to clothing and fashion.
To some degree, because who does the labeling there? Who does the labeling? I call that woman a butch lesbian, but does she label herself as a butch lesbian?
No, exactly. But
we don't know.
But
and to some degree, does she identify as a butch lesbian and then think like, okay, if I dress a little bit more masculine, I'm more butch? It's association, assimilation, and wanting to belong to or wanting to not belong. Maybe she just wears pants because she doesn't want to wear dresses because they're too feminine, or maybe she just doesn't like how they're bothering her when she's climbing a tree for her work because she's an arborist.
It's the when you say the masculine
Millions of reasons.
Yeah, wearing masculine or feminine clothes. That's why I struggle to understand because there's still the masculine and feminine divide. People still associate with either masculine or feminine in their clothing choices.
Because society hasn't moved on from that yet. The individual might have, but society as a whole hasn't. And society as a whole, 30 years ago, classed people as straight or gay.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, ooh, bisexual, ooh, that's a thing, ooh, that's scary. Pansexual, asexual, demisexual, scoliosexual, gynosexual, androsexual, etc., etc., etc. I've only mentioned about 20. There's 1,000 more, just like on the gender dial.
Do they matter though? That's
we
something.
Have come to.
Sorry, something I really want to ask because obviously, the more we divide down into these subgenres, does it kind of take away from the idea that we're all unique? Because why are we constantly finding a need to label? Why can't we just like who we like, love who we love, and be attracted to what we're attracted to? Why do we have to categorize in so many small layers?
It's a bit of both. How do you establish your uniqueness set off against the others that are all the same? By labeling yourself a new label, something that hasn't been used before. Are there others that use the same or a similar label? Yes. Are you very different from them? Genetically speaking, no. Socially speaking, probably no. But it helps you define yourself by using a label that is unique to you. Like earlier on, we were talking about metal genres. How many metal genres do you know? And can you distinguish between true Norwegian black metal and true Norwegian black metal?
Don't even get me started.
I know, but it's the same difference. It helps us to identify ourselves as unique. But it's
a bit of a paradox,
simultaneously,
though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But that is fine as long as we are the ones applying the labels to ourselves. Once we apply the label to someone else, all bets are off.
I think it's quite hard it's so hard to keep up with because the more, again, I've never seen the point of labeling in the first place. To me, it's, you are who you are. I know it's very, and for a lot of people,
it's that. Yeah, but it's that buy again. If we are made to believe that we have more right to slice of pie if we are this rather than that, we will label ourselves as this because then we don't need to fight for scraps. We actually have a slice.
No, I agree. But I again, it's just one of those things I always find very hard to swallow. I always find that the more people tend to divide themselves, the more I feel it takes us away from the unifying truth that we are all just human. The more we start calling ourselves this, that, the other. Same with the music genres. I know sometimes it helps to have a bit of a genre because if you went onto Spotify and you said, I'm in the mood for listening to, and it's just music, that's very different because you're like, right, okay, this doesn't scale down to what mood I'm in. So you kind of need to sort of at least have a ballpark idea of what you're wanting to be interested in, wanting to listen to. But when it gets broken down so much, I feel it's counterproductive. That's just my personal view. I think
it's
people get too caught up in the identity politic rather than just being who they want to be.
Yeah, but that's the instrumentalization of the label itself.
Ooh.
And then you get identity politics. I am a X rather than a Y. Yeah, then you get stuck in it, and then you could become a victim of that label that you use yourself. Identity politics is just that. But yeah.
Because it's something when we were talking about, people like to make in their own little when people create a subgenre for themselves, we can't just allow that subgenre to just exist as it is. We have to then apply rules to it. So you can only be part of our subgenre if you like blah blah blah. Same as in with different brands of feminism. Yeah. A friend of mine. Yeah. She told me the best description or the best summing up of feminism that I've ever heard. She said, feminism isn't about shaving your legs. It's being able to have the choice to or not. And to me, that's a really good summing up. So it's about choice. It's you can do what you wish with your body. Your body is your own. Nobody tells you what to do. But then you will get, say, some feminists say that if you're to be a true feminist in our group, you can't have, having children and staying at home and being a mum is anti-against.
Yeah, or nail polishes, no.
Yeah, so it's that's why I find as soon as you start dividing and creating rules, you start to go away from this whole grey scale that we are, because some people might follow some of those rules, but like when people with political parties, people want to say you're either this or this, rather than saying, I'm probably some of this and I'm some of this as well.
Yeah, I think the division itself, because that's a choice of that person, I divide myself away from the group and do this, that's fine. But once you start establishing rules on what are the requirements to be part of this division, or rather than that division, that's this instrumentalization, just like the instrumentalization of faith. You can only go to heaven if you show up in church in your pew, preferably the most forward one, every single Sunday, twice a week. Once you start making rules for what are the requirements for membership, you've lost.
No, I completely 100% agree.
I don't see there's anything wrong with the divisions and the different groups themselves, but it needs to be a free, today I'm here, today I'm here, because tomorrow you'll wear something, not a black and gray hoodie. Tomorrow you'll wear your spandex mankini again.
Oh, yes.
Does it make you a different person? No, you just feel like you want to wear something different. But you're still Mike.
It's when that elitism creeps in, isn't it? Between my group's better than your group, and that's just where it all goes. Yeah. And we're so good at doing that. As human beings, we are brilliant at thinking our group is better than yours.
Yeah, but we're taught to think that. It's again that pie.
Yes.
Because you can have my slice of pie. I'm not going to share my slice of pie with you because I need pie. I need more pie than you anyway, so give me yours.
Hey, look at this face. Does this face look like a well face that doesn't need feeding? This face needs a lot of pie. Look at the colour I am at the moment. This is a man who's not well. Right, we've had quite a few questions. And actually, the tying in with the religion, as you said, was a question that Chelsea asked earlier on as well. And I think, you can't look at divisions in society without and hierarchies without bringing religion into it. What have we got?
It was one of the first tools that was used that way.
Chelsea said, this goes back a bit, horrific view when talking about people calling trans people monsters and obviously the whole suicide thing. Atta says, thanks for your sincerity. She is with you. Chelsea says, things are improving slowly. Things are improving slowly, but they are. We can be educated as best we can to our kids about inclusion of all. Yep.
Absolutely.
That's
what I'm here for, because I really believe in visibility leads to awareness, which possibly ultimately can lead to acceptance. Without visibility, you're not going to start that motion.
No.
So I'm here, and thank you, Chelsea, for noticing me and helping raise awareness. Thank you.
Okay, we've had that bit. Just catching up on everything now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Atta asked, I want to know you first think you are different and after feel something, or vice versa. Hang on. Which one is prior, think or feel? I suppose, I'm guessing she means, obviously, did you think you were in the wrong body, or did you feel you were in the wrong body?
I think it's all the same.
Yeah.
Like, of course, the thinking, ratio, feeling, heart, subjective, changeable. There is some division there, but like it never happened with me. But assume for a second I'm a 5-year-old child that gets mad at their parents because the parents won't let me wear the dress.
Mm.
Like which comes first there? I'm not old enough yet, with not developed enough set of words and concepts to explain I feel different, I want to wear a dress because I don't like pants.
Yeah.
No, I just start crying because I can't get a dress. Is it knowing or feeling? I don't know.
It's a tricky one, especially say at that age where you're not fully developed your full understanding of thought and feeling. Really, they're all just tied up in one big bundle.
Yeah. And you are literally the center of the universe. There is no division between thought and feeling and want and need. It's all one.
Yeah.
Food, no. Cry,
Boob
no.
in mouth. That's all I desire. And I've shit myself. Now change me. Now change me. Right, TL said...
Any boob.
TL, you just distracted me. They just said boob and my mind just went...
I know.
Yeah. TL James said, when I was a kid, females didn't wear pants. Social norms changed because of our government. Finally sided with females once social norms can be changed. Very true. Chelsea said, yep, there was something I read about pink being more expensive, so boys got it. Can't remember the sources to clarify. That says identification from where according to who, but in fashion we see a lot of LGBT. Yes, we do. Well, to be honest, fashion is usually one of the things that's kind of pushing the forefront, isn't it, of fashion's generally tied with most movements of some description. Can't it not be just whatever floats your boat at the time? Yeah, that's Chelsea's along my kind of school of thinking as well. It's like, I want to wear this, wear that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Happy.
Yeah.
Labels give people strength. Labels give people strength to those, so the naysayers understand differences and educate. Yeah, I suppose that's making a stand, isn't it? And saying, I am different from you. And now I shall educate you on how I am different. But if you didn't realise they're a label, you probably wouldn't get the full picture, I suppose. Right, I think, as I said, we have problems with our bodies and our thoughts and intentions maybe, so we use gender problem because we have a unique map of world that we want to see. Actually, it's very, very philosophical, very poetic in most of her writings. Which you are as well. But I think if we were to go into that now, we'd be here till midnight, I reckon. We've been talking for 2 hours. That's crazy.
That's halfway for me.
Oh yeah, I know. Some of us have unfortunately got work in the morning.
Yeah.
But
And I wish I did.
Yes.
I wish I had to.
Yeah, I know. I'm only partly in the music industry, so I've only suffered like a third, but you've suffered the full Monty, which as many of my friends have, and I know it's an absolute shitstorm to be a part of. But I think we're going to have to wind it up, but I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. So,
I'd like to have a second one.
Oh, we will definitely get you back for seconds. So I could happily just talk to you for absolutely hours. So, and especially someone who's not only lived his life, but somebody who's very informed as well, which is always really nice. You can have somebody who can feel a thing, but doesn't always express it in a way that comes across well and has the facts to back it up. While you live the life, and
but it doesn't make them less valid.
No, not at all. But it
doesn't make them less valid.
But sometimes sometimes if we're working from a place of just pure emotion, and we can't always put forward a good concept or a good argument. Having someone who can do both, like you can say, "I'm angry," and if that why you're angry, I don't know, doesn't help. If you can say, "I'm angry because blah 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 blah," that is something you can work with a lot better. But I just want to say to anybody watching, if I've used any terms that are inflammatory or they have not been for that purpose, they have just been due to the narrative of what we've been talking. So therefore, it's an example of phrases people use. So I'm not using it to be defamatory to anyone. No. It's just to aid in the storytelling.
The same goes for anything I have said, because I have said some heavy words, but they're to illustrate what actually happens out there.
Yes, exactly. As you say, you have to paint a picture, and you have to use certain phrases and terms that sometimes aren't the most pleasant. Chelsea says, Atta says, thanks a lot for both of you. Chelsea says, thank you both of you. Found this a lovely chat to listen to, and so apologises for commenting so much. No, that's the whole point of having a chat, because we like people to get involved. I know we don't come to the chat all the time, but generally when in a conversation like this, when you have everything flowing, you don't want to interrupt the flow too much. Just like that DJ who's on a roll and then someone comes up and says, can you play some blah blah blah, that is completely different to what they're currently playing, and they're like, yeah, I'll stop everything and change the entire flow of the night just for you.
For everybody.
I'll ruin it all for everybody because you're more important. Yeah. But no, we love it when you get involved and when you ask questions.
But having said that, I also find it important, especially on a subject like this, like how many people actually know someone who is transgender in their direct vicinity, on something that everybody talks about, but no one actually knows anything about. I do think it's important to listen to the, hey, but how is this? Or can you tell me more about that?
Yeah.
So I do think there's a certain value, unless it's more like the trolling kind of whataboutism, which is, and that's probably something for a second episode. Mm-hmm. I'm also a transgender athlete.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting. That's going to be
trolls.
Yeah. Again, it's a tricky subject where you can have an initial response, and I know
this thing here.
Oh yes.
It's probably it's not visible enough.
No, we could see.
You are talking with a world champion. Yeah.
Oh really?
You're talking with a world champion. You can imagine the amount of interesting messages I've received because of it.
I think we will definitely have to cover that in our next chat, because again, it's one of those things. You hear the initial impact, and I can understand the point of view, especially from female athletes who have said, where people have gone into various sports after transitioning and just absolutely crushing the opposition. But I tend.
That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. It doesn't actually really happen. And the best example is since 2003, when the IOC first started allowing this as of the next Olympic cycle, today, 2021, the announcement of Laurel Hubbard, New Zealand weightlifter, if she does indeed get nominated, being the first transgender at the Olympics. So talk about absolutely crushing the competition. If that would have indeed been the case, Laurel Hubbard would not have been the first one in 2021 to actually make it to the Olympics. The vast majority do not, because there is not that absolutely crushing.
It's going to be an interesting. I think this is the one thing that when I generally try to go by science and statistics and the evidence that's out there, and this is one thing,
and that's what I'm giving you.
Yeah, and this is one thing that
I'm giving you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and this is the one thing I think a lot of people. It is more foolish, I think, to live your life without changing your mind, to believe that you're so knowledgeable that you can never change your mind throughout your entire life, because you're constantly going to come up against new information, new facts, new evidence. And if you don't follow, all you're going to... It's just so bloody minded to think that you hold all the cards, all the knowledge, and that you know better than everything. It's... But then I suppose people tie them...
What's that quote about the person, as they gain more knowledge, they actually realize they know nothing? The foolish person has an opinion and a fact on everything, but no.
There's what do they call it? There's a for people who know little but believe they know everything. What is it? There's not a complex. What's it called? It describes most people on Facebook who believe they. Does anyone out there know what it is? It's please. It's like not a syndrome. It's like it's a complex that, as you say, people who, the more you learn about a subject, the more you realise that there are more questions, and there are more answers infinitely that you will never have. But then, the person who believes they know everything knows.
And it's from the I fear what I don't know, because that's what I'm taught to do. The Frankenstein thing. Together with the not knowing the facts, the facts that you do know being based on the biology class you had when you were 12 years old, and basing all of that knowledge on today's progress, because the biology class you had 30 years ago was based on knowledge that people had 30 years prior to that. 700 years ago, we thought the Earth was flat.
And people still do.
800 years ago, we thought we were the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Heliocentrism. As science and knowledge progresses, we learn to accept that what we knew yesterday is no longer correct today, and won't be what we know today won't be correct tomorrow. And it's an eternal process. But if today you say that what was true 30 years ago and stick to your guns, then you get the group of people you were trying to find the label for. Wink, wink, wink.
It's something like, and it's not Hein Gerich, because that's a motorcycle clothing manufacturer, but it sounds something like that. I can't remember. But I think with what you're saying there, one of the big problems that when it comes to people taking in new information and new ideas is that if you let your ideas and your thoughts, if you personally invest them and make them become more than just your thoughts, if you, like for example with a religion, now it's not just the religion is not just a concept to someone, it is a belief, it is a way of life, it is something that you invest yourself in, it becomes part of your identity. So when when your beliefs become, or ideas become part of your identity, it's harder to change, because you feel if someone attacks if you have an idea about something that you personally are invested in, if someone criticizes that idea, they're not just criticizing your idea, they're criticizing you as a person. And that is why people
absolutely
are very, very reluctant, to let go of, you can have an idea about immigration, and it can be, I believe immigrants, blah, blah, blah. If someone says, well, no, the statistics show blah, blah, blah. If you're like, well, everything I believe in is blaming immigrants for everything, then I'm going to just double down and try and back up my argument because I've put so much time and effort into hating people. Dunning-Kruger. Thank you, Atta. Dunning-Kruger syndrome. Finally. Well done. Thank you. Thank you, Atta. Yes, Dunning-Kruger is running amok in our society today.
Okay, yep. I'll Google that and read up on that.
Oh, you'll know it as you'll look around and go, this is pretty much everybody in social media. We're going to do it in real time.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see the penny drop. All right, while you are viewing that, I'll just say thank you to everyone who's tuned in. And again, thank you to you as well. It's been absolutely brilliant. And as you can see, we could easily just go, what about this? And then we'll just carry off into more different realms.
Wasn't it half an hour ago that we said we should?
Nearly, yes.
It was only 20 minutes.
Yeah, I have got to go in because I've got to
It'll be another 10 before we're done.
Yeah, I've got to go in and give our dog medication, so I definitely have to go. But Atta says we want new chapters. Yeah, we will definitely be doing this again, and so there's so many different things we can cover. Yeah. So Laura, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who liked the stream, who followed and commented. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mike, for having me, and thank you all viewers out there. Chelsea, Kerry, Atta, TL, LT, TL.
TL, that's it.
TL. Thank you very much for your questions. Asking questions is always better than making assumptions. So thank you very much.
No, that's a quote.
And I hope to be on this channel more regularly.
You will, and I like that. Asking questions is better than making assumptions. That is one of those great quotes. I think should be carved in stone on the rules to life. And by the way, you can check out Laura's.
It always is.
Yeah, I will. Who was it? Sorry. Oh yeah, we're pointing down. Hang on, I'm all mirrored. I don't know ups from downs. Right, hang on. I've got to get this right. That way, and all these down here are links to Laura's works from her website, to various musings she has, various blogs. So please do go and check them out. And once COVID fucks off, tour managers and people, or people looking to tour, please hire Laura, because if you go and look on her website and actually look at the things that people have to say about her, it's literally 5-star, 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 5-star. Laura's amazing, 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 amazing at her job. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So, yeah, but it's true. All right. Excellent. I will catch up with you soon, hopefully. And thank you, everyone. Take care. And we'll see you all later. Oh, what you got? Oh, bless. I've got a boglin somewhere.
Thank you.
Don't know where he's gone, though. He's lurking somewhere. All right. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.